We are ready to go.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 13th, 2022 full board meeting of Manhattan Community Board 6. My name is Kyle Athide, and I'm the chair of CB6. This meeting is being called to order at 7:01 p.m. And tonight we are joined by Secretary Matt Bondi, District Manager Jesus Perez, Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth, and Community Associate Alexandra Crawford. Before we begin, I'd like to set up some ground rules. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe the following rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. Please raise your hand. To CB6 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, again, please raise your hand through Zoom. A reminder that the chat function should not be used for CB6 business or for questions about agenda topics. Any and all such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom, and chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information such as an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Next, when a member is given the floor to speak, I will first identify you and then you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. We are required by New York State law to have a transcript of this meeting, so please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. And lastly, to the members of the public, if you wish to give remarks during the public session and have not already registered by filling out the form on the CB6 website ahead of time, you can register to speak in the public session by using the Q&A feature of Zoom and posting your name, your affiliation, and what specific topic you wish to speak about. This must be completed by 7:15 p.m. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office, was posted online, and appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. So board members, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. Brendan, were you able to put the agenda up? All right, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. We'll now take attendance.
Thank you, Kyle. Kyle Athide.
Present.
Asia Body. Asia. Neil Barkley.
Present.
Martin Barrett.
Present.
Elvie Barroso. Elvie.
Elvie is excused.
Okay, thank you. Here. Claire Brennan. Claire.
Present.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Jim Collins.
Here.
Stuart Desser.
Present.
Michael Devereaux. Michael. Okay, Daniel Devine.
Here.
Beatrice Disman. B. Okay, Jeannie D'Onofrio. Charles Fernandez.
Present.
Eric Goldberg.
Present.
Thank you. Adam Harkey.
Present.
Molly Hollister. Molly?
He's unwell and won't be able to join us tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Jesus. Paige Judge.
Present.
John Keller,
Present.
Abigail Kruzmark,
Present.
Sandra Leftoff.
Here.
Thank you. Anton Malner,
Present.
Kavitha Matthew.
She's excused.
Okay. Sandra McKee,
Present.
Richard Mintz.
Present.
Thank you, Richard. Philip Napolitano. Philip. Rajesh Nayar.
Present.
Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Stephen O.
Present.
Reshma Patel. Reshma. Okay, Matt Roberts.
Present.
Gene Santoro. Gene. Lawrence Scher.
Present.
Ann Seligman.
Present.
Lou Sapersky.
Yo.
Thank you, Lou. Seema Shah.
Present.
Sean Sherman. Sean. Sandro Sherrod.
Present.
Letty Simon.
Present.
Susan Steinberg. Susan. Hey, Andrew Suresh. Andrew. Mark Thompson.
Mark is
Mark?
excused,
Oh.
as is Anju and Susan, actually.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Maura Wong.
Present.
Ronnie White. Ronnie. Claude Winfield.
Present.
Thank you, Claude. Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Can you just mark Mike Devereaux present? I'm sorry, I came late.
Um,
Matt, did
all
you?
right, yep, I got it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you. I have asked all of our elected officials to send over their reports ahead of time so that we can compile them. You can find the reports that were submitted on the CB6 website, and the link to the reports was disseminated ahead of time to all board members and the general public, and for your convenience can be found in the chat right now. I will now call on each of the elected officials who have RSVP so that they can take questions from CB6 members and the public about their pre-submitted reports. As a reminder, this is not a time to make reports. This is a time to ask questions about the reports. And each elected official will have 1 minute to field questions. If there are no questions, we will move to the next elected official on our list. If an elected official has a time-sensitive matter to report on that didn't make it into their pre-submitted report, they will have 3 minutes to do so. During this part of the meeting, we will also hear from government agency representatives who have requested to address the board tonight. We'll first start off with Senator Liz Krueger, who actually will be making a report to us.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to be very quick. We did just complete the state budget Saturday morning at 5:30 a.m. It's a complicated, full budget, but I'm actually very proud of many things we got in there, including, I think, of most importance to us here in New York City, a second year of the full funding under the CFE lawsuit, a commitment we made last year and we're following through with this year. Some significant new money for CUNY, including TAP for part-time students, filling in the TAP gap, some additional money to cover more faculty, and a big jump in their capital funding. We also put a significant amount of new money into commitments on housing, 5-year, $25 billion housing package through the governor, about $4.5 billion this coming year, plus additional funding for the ERAP program to pay back rent arrears for people who could not afford their rent during COVID, and the LRAP program, which is similar directly to the landlords. Additional money for environmental work. We will have a $4.2 billion Environmental Bond Act on the ballot when you go and vote in November. Hopefully there'll be plenty of time for me to urge you to make a yes vote on that, because there is so much funding that we can get from that bond act to cover EV vehicles and school buses and a massive expansion of our efforts on climate change, which I can't say enough good about. There's also, of course, some things I don't like about the budget. I will just leave it at, I don't support public monies going into private sports stadiums. For the record, I voted against our using money for the Mets, the Yankees, the Nets, the Long Island, the Islanders, I believe, and I'm also on record as opposed to the 600 to 800 million we just agreed to put into the Buffalo Bills in this budget. You win some, you lose some. I'm happy to answer any questions people wish to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. I actually didn't intend to wear my Bills t-shirt today.
Oops.
But we do have a question from Jim Collins. Jim, go ahead.
Hi, Senator. I had two questions. First of all, the budget, as I read, was scheduled to be $4 billion over what the governor's executive budget had been, and that a lot of it was supported by one-shots from the federal government, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just wondering how we intend to pay for the recurring items, or if there are cuts intended to the budget, to spending, to balance out the state budget in the out years. And the second thing is whether or not you mentioned the buses and green energy. I'm just wondering if you're planning to offer that bond issue as a green bond deal, which tends to come with fewer or with lesser interest rates and has a good deal of demand in the bond market.
So the second part first, yes, New York State will go for the lowest interest rates possible on the Bond Act. First, we have to get it approved by the public. Then we'll see what
as a green bond.
Yeah, but no, yes, but as to whether it fits any specific company's category of a green bond or not, we'll have to see after we get the Bond Act passed and attempt to go to market. But we're always committed to getting the lowest interest rates possible. And I'm very confident that the $4 billion above and beyond the governor's original proposal is being paid for in a combination of supplemental unprogrammed pandemic response funding, and those are for one shot, so they are not going to be continuing spending. Some was increased revenue consensus. The tax revenues have actually been coming in larger than anyone anticipated, and some tax expenditures. So we are projecting that the out years, we will also have adequate funding to meet our needs, and we are even putting about $3.8 billion into the reserve fund to make sure that we build up the cash we could need in the next crisis.
Thank you,
Senator. We have another question from Claire. Claire, go ahead.
Hi, Senator. Thank you for being here and congratulations on passing the budget. My question is a follow-up from, I believe I asked you this before when you were with us most recently, but just following up on the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. Just wondering like a little bit about like current status and what we as a district can expect. I did see a Gothamist article recently that mentioned, and I've noticed myself a little bit south of our district, you are seeing marijuana stores pop up. And I was wondering, are they regulated? What's their status? If you could just provide a brief update there, I'd appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you. So no, anyone who's seeing stores pop up or vehicles saying that they sell marijuana, those are not legal. Those are not regulated. I can't tell you what they're actually selling you, which is a concern. So there are people who are sort of exploiting us being in this gray area where we have decriminalized, but we have not yet gotten licenses out for selling legally, where they go, well, it's probably okay for me to sell whatever I want, wherever I want. In fact, what they are doing is illegal. And we've had discussions with DAs and the police about intervening. And so the police are actually going after these stores and trucks. I will tell you that if you choose to be in an illegal business that you've started up now, your chances of getting one of our licenses when we issue those by the end of the year is pretty small. So anybody who thinks this is a good deal for them may be sorely disappointed when we start to issue the licenses that would allow them to become legal businesses, tax-paying citizens, and they won't find themselves eligible for the licenses. Now, is it true that there is marijuana to be purchased on the black market? Of course, as there has been for 100 years in New York City. And so the purpose of our bill was to try to create a regulated legal system. And I'm very confident in the model we've been developing. But no, it didn't mean we were automatically going to have an end to illegal marijuana.
And so just a follow-up, you said like by the end of the year is something that, or we can expect to see legal establishments operating. Is that your expectation?
We have the expectations of licenses for establishments going out before the end of the year and probably soon after that stores being opened. There's an expedited process for 150 dispensaries. And I think as of today or tomorrow, you'll hear an announcement that we did give out some licenses for growing cannabis, because we want to make sure that when we are ready to open those stores, they actually have a supply that they can purchase. So licenses for cannabis growers will start to be released. Again, I just gave a call for a press release, so I think it's tomorrow they're going to be announcing.
Thank you again.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to Sandra.
Well, hi, thank you for joining us and for your work in the state legislature. My question is what the status of the good cause eviction legislation is. There was some hope that it would be packaged in with the budget, obviously wasn't. So I'm, can you fill us in on where that's at?
So it is a freestanding bill. There were some people hoping that it would slide into the budget. It did not. And so there's an effort to move it through both houses now as we go back to deal with legislation between now and June. I know that I'm a co-sponsor of the bill. I don't know what the numbers are up to. I know there's a lot of false information out there about what would happen. And just for the record, New Jersey's had the same law in effect for 50 years. The world did not end in New Jersey. I know some people don't love New Jersey, but that's a separate topic.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll finish out with Lou.
I was just wondering if we could go back to marijuana for a moment. There's some scientific studies which raise questions about individuals driving cars having smoked marijuana or ingested chemicals found in marijuana. Is the legislature going to address some mechanism for dealing with that in the same way that driving under the influence of alcohol is now addressed?
So it was addressed in the legislation, Lou, and it's basically the same standards and rules so that if you are caught driving while intoxicated, whether it's marijuana or another kind of drug, but not alcohol because there's a separate test for alcohol, the police can stop you, can pull you over, can test you in a variety of ways, can take your keys away now, and actually penalties going all the way up to taking your license away. There are also police officers who have special training in IDing intoxicated driving from drugs. And there are states that are already piloting devices that police can use in their cars to test cannabis in your bloodstream. Perhaps not your bloodstream, because I don't think they're taking your blood on the side of a road. So let me take that back. But be able to test whether they believe that there is a cannabis level of intoxication through an actual test similar to the type of test we give for alcohol and driving.
Thank you. Appreciate.
All right, and thank you so much, Senator. I don't see any other hands up. And Madeline, if you could add your contact into the chat for any follow-up questions, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Deputy Borough President.
Thank you so much, Kyle. First of all, my name is Keisha Sutton James. I wanted to introduce myself. I know some of you and have seen some of you in other meetings, but I just wanted to say that it is my pleasure to be with you this evening and in the Borough President's absence. So thank you, Kyle, and to our lovely chair for having me tonight. In terms of remarks, there's much to report on behalf of Borough President Levine. First, let's see. Although I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm getting my boards mixed up. I am not to report out for 6. Correct. I apologize.
No,
just taking questions.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of questions just about the application process for the appointments. So if you have an update on that, that would be great.
Absolutely. So application process, we are so thankful. There have been almost 900 applications that have been submitted, which is a record, except for the year after Donald Trump was elected. So we're really proud of Manhattan for digging in and engaging, and we're looking forward to not only having a number of people, new folks join the boards, but also being engaged with this office and community in other ways. We have conducted I think 8 sessions where we've interviewed almost all of the applicants. We're thinking those who have not yet signed up or did not sign up for interviews, perhaps decided not to continue with the process. As I said, we've done 8 of them. So we're finished with the interview process. We're almost done with the review process, and we'll soon be reaching out to our council member Rivera here. We'll be reaching out to all of the council members to meet with them. And hopefully our goal, I shouldn't say hopefully, but our goal is to make appointments at the end of the month. So we're really trying to get this done on time and on schedule. And we're pushing very, very hard. And I have to applaud Tricia Shimamura for leading a valiant effort and an incredible team in getting that done. Are there any other questions about the appointment process and timing or anything?
Thank you. No, that was pretty much the questions about that, but I will open it up to anyone else who might have questions for the Borough President's office and for the Deputy Borough President. All right, I have a question from Claire. Claire, go ahead.
Sorry, quick question. Thanks for being here, Keisha. Just wondering, I was told that there would be a makeup date for the interviews. Is there any update on that?
Yes. I think we should, Brian, if maybe you can drop either drop your email address in the chat to Brian.
I'll email Brian.
We had it right. We had a makeup on Monday, but perhaps we didn't, somehow you fell through the cracks. So there will be another kind of process, another opportunity for those who were not able to interview. There's not many, there's probably maybe 2 or 3 from each community board, but we'll be sending that email out to those folks tomorrow. So let's make sure that you are connected with Brian so that you can get that information.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions for the Deputy Borough President? All right, it's an easy night.
Indeed. Kyle, may I just have 1 second to say one thing?
Go ahead.
Thanks. There's very importantly, I just wanted to lift up the work that the borough president is doing around COVID in terms of his initiative, Stay Safe, Stay Open, on which he's calling for the city, frankly, to distribute masks to all buildings, to amp up testing, to distribute test kits to everyone, in particular those who are most disproportionately impacted, et cetera, et cetera. We've been giving out thousands of test kits. We will be doing more. So we're going to be in the coming weeks, we have thousands more. So we have more that we will be giving out in your community at some point soon. Brian is weighing in on a number of different places that we can do that. So look for that in the coming weeks to get more test kits, because as you know, we are seeing yet another spike with the most current variant. And that is, I think, the last thing I will lift up for you all tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone have an amazing Easter and Passover and a restful weekend.
Thank you so much, Deputy Borough President.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to Senator Hoylman. Senator.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone. Thanks for having me. Really just here to take questions as Senator Krueger, our finance chair, discussed so ably. We passed a record $220 billion budget. There was a lot of good, some things not so great in the budget, including things like funding a Buffalo Bills stadium to the tune of 60 to $100 million of taxpayer funds. That said, I think that the investments in education, childcare, funding ERAP for tenants who are on the brink of insolvency and eviction, and our efforts around getting more psychiatric beds online, as we just learned in the harrowing last 48 hours, is so important for New Yorkers. Overall, I think we did a pretty good job, given the hand we were dealt with and the new administration with which we had to negotiate. So happy to take any questions that you might have. And thanks again to Senator Krueger for really leading that effort, not on just behalf of Manhattan, but the entire state as Senate Finance Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Senator Hoylman? I have a question from Sandra. Sandy, go ahead.
Hi, Senator. We have a resolution up today. Actually, it's incredibly dark in here, sorry. But about the casino that potentially could come to our waterfront. And we're just wondering how realistic that is, that it could be located within our community and on our waterfront.
Well, it's a bidding process combined with local control, which is something that Senator Krueger and I both advocated for, and I know Assemblymember Epstein as well. Given the enormous external impacts that a casino is likely to have, both in our district on the east side, but also in my district in Times Square. So the scenario that has been passed is that there has to be majority support for such a casino from a constellation of local elected officials, including the borough president, the representatives of the city council, and the local state senator and the local assembly member. So we think that's going to hopefully lead to a very robust community conversation. And I think your local officials will be looking to you to either give us guidance on how you'd like to see us vote in this committee that is part of this new legislation. So I would say highly unlikely, to be very candid about how I see this committee operating, given the stakes that are likely to be considered with casinos, whether it's at the Water Club or in Times Square.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll find out how our community feels when we vote on this resolution today. Thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And another community board issue that we worked on was the push for continued virtual meetings. I would say that we got partially there, but not completely there in terms of allowing community boards to continue to meet online. We still have some more work to do, but at the moment, what we passed in the budget requires basically the quorum of the community board to meet in person at a physical location. And according to this legislation that's in the budget, you will be able to have basically virtual teleconferencing as part of that. So some community board members can meet virtually, but less than the quorum, and the public could also watch and participate virtually. But I don't think that's the best solution. That's not what I was frankly seeking in this bill. So my legislation that I've been advocating with the borough president, I'm going to continue to push. I think we should have fully virtual options. It's been an astounding success, as we've seen tonight with close to 80 participants. And I was on a community board meeting the other night that had 500 members of the public online. I don't think I've spoken before 500 people before in my entire life, but it happened at Community Board 2 a couple of weeks ago.
Well, bless their hearts.
Right?
Yeah. But no, thank you actually, because that was actually a question I was going to ask later on, because obviously our board has been on the forefront of advocating for this with surveys and data and putting it forth with our resolutions and supporting your legislation. So we'll continue to be a good partner there.
Thank you very much.
I see a question from the public. Brendan, can we let Alfred speak?
Yep.
Senator, good evening. Thank you for taking my question. I was wondering, can you, I'm sorry, can everybody hear me?
Yep. I think you cut out.
Pardon me. The Supreme Court may strike down our gun laws by the beginning of the summer. And I was wondering what the state had planned for, a potential influx of more guns, throughout the state, throughout the city, there's a kind of top level impression that we have that, we're going to legalize marijuana. We're going to put more guns on the street, and there's potentially more gambling that's going to come to the city. And so, kind of the influx of all those various factors. And I'm sorry for sounding like such a Puritan, but it just kind of, it just sort of starts to add up. And the potential more guns on the streets. Well, we can all see what's already happening.
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, just yesterday, of course, that was no doubt an illegal gun at play in that horrific scene in Brooklyn. And I'm glad that our Senate district helped apprehend the suspect. But let me say this. I was at the White House actually just 2 days ago for an announcement that there is now a federal response to ghost guns. Those are those untraceable guns that can be downloaded from the internet and produced with a 3D printer or manufactured with tools at home with the assistance of a YouTube video. But they're essentially free of any requirements for background checks. And I'm very happy that President Biden announced that there is now federal guidance on ghost guns, on untraceable guns, and a new resolve to crack down on them. New York took that step. My legislation that I passed with Assemblymember Rosenthal last year is part of that effort. And our latest effort, I was speaking to the Manhattan District Attorney about, is the requirement that all firearms use microstamping technology, so that when a gun is fired, the casing will be encrypted with the serial number as it exits the gun. And hopefully that will help solve the less than 50% of murders that remain open here in Manhattan. So we're going to push that legislation. We have a bunch of gun groups on our side, including Brady, Everytown, Moms Demand Action, Giffords. But I'll tell you this also, they're very concerned about states like New York taking steps in the area of open carry, which is the issue at hand in the Supreme Court, because they don't want to provide any ammunition, so to speak, for the NRA as they prepare to present oral arguments to the court later this year. So we are very cognizant of being careful with legislation that we pass in Albany, but we think the microstamping technology bill, which is something California has and other states are looking at, could be a way forward to help solve gun crimes and help law enforcement solve gun crimes. So I hope to get that passed this session.
All right, thank you, Senator. And I'm not seeing any other questions, so greatly appreciate it.
Nice to see you guys.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Assemblymember Epstein.
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm happy to see people remotely, and as Senator Krueger says, and as Senator Hoylman said, we're going to have a bit of a grace period to go back to in-person meetings if there isn't any change in the current law. So, I think people should be prepared for that grace period over the next 60 days, but then to expect, unless there's a change, which I think it's highly unlikely, to having the more hybrid in-person with a virtual option meeting. I'm happy we got through the budget, and I'm happy to take any questions that people have on what happened. I'm happy to talk about the casinos and other things, but also I know you have a packed agenda, so let me know.
All right, thank you very much, Assemblymember. Are there any questions for the Assemblymember from the board or from the public?
Which great. I'm happy that's, I just will say one thing. If people see there's illegal cannabis shops being set up, even if they're giving away the cannabis, that violates state law. A letter can be sent to them telling them shutting down. And like Senator Krueger said earlier, they will not likely to get a license in the first round or the next round. So if you see problems that are going on, you should let me know or let them know, and then we can make sure there's actions taken to prevent them from doing what's illegal.
All right, thank you very much. Actually, I see a question from Jim. Jim?
Hi, Assemblymember. I'm curious, I haven't really followed the cannabis legislation that closely, but is there any restriction on the location next to schools or near schools with respect to sales? We have one right in your district on 3rd Avenue between 16th and 17th that I would think would run afoul of either George Washington Irving High School or the Quaker School, Society of Friends School.
So are you saying there's a business already set up they're selling cannabis from?
I don't know that they're selling cannabis. I haven't been in. It's a brand new head shop, basically.
Yeah, I have to say there's a lot of delis, stores that are selling. They're like headshots that are doing what seems to be they're trying to kind of skirt the line of what's legal and illegal. If you think they're doing things that is any relationship to cannabis, you should just let us know. You can
Well,
send an
how
email to
far?
my.
Yeah, but how far do they need to be from a school? I guess is my
Yeah,
question.
so we're waiting for the regulations to come out for the cannabis management organization, and those regulations will set those parameters. And so we don't have those yet, and so they're right now doing community meetings. So if you want to sign up, we can. They're having regular meetings across the state, and
Mhm.
so we don't have those regs. But my expectation is to kind of be. I mean, we've seen this with this SLA, and and the distance they should be from schools and houses of worship. I assume they're going to have similar regulations, but I would encourage people here, if they have concerns, to make sure they attend those meetings and voice your concerns. And also our office can do the same.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Assembly Member. We'll now move on to Council Member Rivera.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Very, very thankful. Every time you all show up, I realize you're volunteers and, things that we'll be fighting for in the city budget. And of course, I know our electeds in Albany is to make sure that the community board has adequate and more funding and resources to do this job. So just know in the city budget, as we try to address filling in some of the gaps left at the state level, as well as investing in other programs and services, and making sure that we're working hand in hand with our agencies and that they're doing the right thing with the funds that they receive, that we will keep you all in mind. And of course, making sure that your day-to-day feels good and that you're proud to be a New Yorker. I guess, you have the community board report, so please take a look. We put a lot of work and thought into that, not just events, but legislatively, budgetarily, what we're up to. And of course, everything from quality of life issues to things that we're working on and even celebrating locally. I will just mention that tomorrow I'll be introducing some housing legislation. One of them is the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is actually a reintroduction from last term, which gives qualified affordable housing developer entities the first opportunity to submit an offer to purchase certain residential buildings when offered for sale, and that's to increase and hopefully accelerate the creation of affordable housing. As you know, we're in a crisis. We'll also be introducing legislation around a vacant unit registry that will also mandate inspections of no fewer than 15% of all of those apartments to make sure that we can get them back online and available to folks. And then 2 more bills on emergency lead remediation for any children who are under 6. And if they find lead in that unit, it would be categorized as a Class C hazardous violation, which requires immediate attention. And then another bill on air quality assessments, which would require HPD to memorialize a list of interior air pollutants and mandate remediation when found by the owner prior to offering a lease for signature. So it's my goal, as you all know, to try and work on a number of issues. I feel like housing is certainly one of the most pressing. And so in an effort to, fight for preservation, creation, and equity, those are some bills that I'll be introducing at tomorrow's stated meeting. I guess that's it. Everything else is in the report. We're always here to answer questions or address concerns. And it's so good to see some folks that I saw over the weekend who are also being celebrated for some of their work, the Alliance for Kips Bay. I see Sandy and Molly here, and a number of others like Eric and Kevin at the Peter Stuyvesant Little League. It's always nice to have just those moments of joy are really important for all of us in some serious times. So with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. I see a question from Anne. Anne, go ahead.
Hey, Carlina, thanks for coming tonight. So I have a question about something that's in your report about the asphalt alternatives.
Oh, my bill for, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say that they are useful in many ways, not, as you probably know, not just what they do, like they're cheaper and reduce CO2 emissions, but they also reduce CSOs, which I know is something that you have been concerned about. And in fact, with Ronnie White, I put together some materials about things that we might do to, in a general way, kind of reduce rainfall remediation. I'm happy to, I just made it a Google Doc, so I'm happy to share that with you. But it just seemed really relevant. And so I wanted to kind of close that connection on that.
Please do. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I didn't mention it. I did introduce a bill also on a pilot program to find greener alternatives to asphalt, which has been done on the West Coast in a couple of places, but no kind of, city as large as ours has taken on this kind of this endeavor. And also, I would have loved to just implement something right away. We have to look at it. As you know, we also have to work with our construction companies and unions to make sure that we're implementing it responsibly and looking at fiscally the implications. So I appreciate that. I would love to work on this with you, and hopefully it will lead to some kind of creative alternatives that are just better for all of us.
Great. Well, let me know what's the best way. You can do it offline or whatever, but let me know what the best way to share this document with you. And Ronnie is really the expert on this. Like, I really want to give her the credit for it. So.
All right. Well, thanks to both of you. You can email Katie Loeb. She just chatted you up.
Awesome. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, Rich.
I just wanted to let Katie know that I'm going to follow up with her about the vacant unit registry. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich.
Excellent.
And Jim? Okay.
While Jim is unmuting, I don't mean to associate Rich
Since
with,
we were talking, since you were talking
go.
about green things, we had talked about earlier about getting composting done on a more regular basis in the city. And it might interest you. I came across an article, I guess last week or 2 weeks ago, about how if you compost food that goes unused, uneaten food that goes into a landfill sets off tons of methane gas. Whereas if you compost it, it does not. And it's one of the things, I think it was the United Nations that did the survey and found that this and one or two other things were some of the lowest hanging fruit that a city could do to reduce emissions. So I think maybe we might want to make it a higher priority going into the next year's budget. And also perhaps mandate it in units of certain buildings. For example, if you have more than 50 units, mandate that composting is required in the building. Also, hospitals, schools, other institutions. It's actually, I think it's probably much more effective than, say, the plastic bag mandate. A lot of other things that are more visible, but if we want to be serious about it, something like that would be much better. I'll see if I can find the article and send it to you, or send it through the board office. But it was quite enlightening. I was surprised. I didn't know that. I didn't know that composting stopped methane emissions.
And I appreciate that, because I do feel like composting is something that we kind of know about and hear about. And for example, the work that members of this board did to bring a composting site to St. Barton's, as well as other sites throughout the district, is really a big deal. And it also, I feel, is very accessible for an individual. Like earlier today, we like took our compost out of the freezer and then we brought it over to Union Square Park. And like, I realized that not everyone can do that. So the more sites, the better. I also think having something close by as convenient as, in commercial buildings, residential buildings, even some restaurants, and as you mentioned, hospitals have a long way to go. So one of the big priorities that the council is putting forward, I was going to do a quick mention of like transit and transportation, and thank you for the work that you're doing also around like sidewalks on 3rd Avenue and the whole reimagining of 3rd Avenue. But honestly, like sanitation is something, funding and expanding sanitation services. And that really is that is where composting falls under. And we have a fantastic committee on sanitation chair, Councilmember Sandy Nurse, who actually founded a composting organization in Brooklyn called BK Rot. So we have someone who is really passionate about the issue. And then with all the advocacy that has been done by this board and Community Board 3, for example, around getting more sites, I think just sanitation in general is definitely one of it's like my top priority. So that includes, litter basket pickups and street sweeping, but also the composting. So I appreciate that, Jim. Send it to me anyway, the most convenient way possible. And I guess, that's the sound of the bell is the ambulance. I will be reintroducing the ambulance bill to implement a program for 2-tone sirens, which are a little bit more pleasant to the ear, which has to do with noise pollution, which is also an environmental issue. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Council Member. And seeing no further questions, we'll move on to our next speaker. Taylor from Representative Maloney's office.
Hi, I don't have any updates outside of the report. So if folks have any questions, let me know, but otherwise nothing new.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Are there any questions for Representative Maloney's office? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much, Taylor. We'll now move on to Alex from Assembly Member Court's office.
Hi, everyone. I think the senators and assembly members covered it all, but happy to take any questions and drop my email in the chat.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any questions for Assembly Member Court's office? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much. We'll move on to Brees from Assembly Member Godfrey's office.
Hi, hello, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, nothing really to report this evening, but I will be monitoring the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brees. Are there any questions for Assembly Member Godfrey's office? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Brees. And your contact is in the chat. So if anyone has any follow-ups, please feel free to reach out to any of our electeds tonight. Next up, we have Council Member Power's office. We're joined by Kay tonight.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kay. I've never been on one of these before yet. I can just do a quick roundup of the report and then I can take any questions. So recently, Councilmember Powers has been doing a lot of exciting things in City Hall. He was a part of 2 bills to strengthen New York City's fire safety measures by regulating heat in apartment buildings, including one that prohibits the sale of electric space heaters without proper automatic shutoff features and functional thermostats, along with another bill which requires owners of residential buildings to provide heat for their tenants to maintain higher heat minimums. So basically would mean if passed, when outside temperature falls below 55 degrees, apartments will have to be at least 70 during the day and at least 66 at night. And this really was, in response to the really tragic Bronx fire that happened earlier this year. So the idea is to make tenants less reliant on dangerous space heaters or other unsafe warming devices in the colder months. Along with that, our office continues to receive a lot of complaints about the conditions on East 14th Street between First Avenue and Avenue A. Of course, the situation in this block has really deteriorated during the pandemic. So recently he did a walkthrough with Councilmember Rivera, State Senator Hoyland, and the Tenants Association to discuss the ongoing issue. While it looks improved, We still need steady presence of city agencies to address the problems going on in the block. It remains a challenging situation and there is a lot of work to do, but he's kind of staying involved and thoroughly engaged. And they just sent a letter after the walkthrough to Mayor Adams asking for ongoing attention to the issue. And the Department of Homeless Services, the Sanitation Department, Police Department are still visiting the block daily to address the problems. And then one other piece of legislation that we want to highlight is a recent one on credit card minimums. So often, well, consumers will go to the store. I don't know if other people experience this, but they'll go to the store and the credit card minimum will be so high that they won't either do the transaction or they'll go to another establishment, usually a larger retailer, so that they don't have to pay the higher minimum. So Councilmember Powers was put forth legislation prohibiting businesses from setting a minimum purchase requirement greater than $10 for credit card transactions. And along with that, it comes with clear disclosure of credit card transaction minimums at cash registers, a transparent, publicly accessible reporting mechanism so people can, hold businesses accountable, along with a functioning local enforcement structure to ensure, everything's in compliance. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry, I'm not Pat, who's, much more equipped in these types of situations. So I hope he's out for a bit. So I will do my best to answer everything as well as I can.
Well, we're happy to welcome you tonight. I see we have a question from Anne.
Yeah, hi, welcome. Don't worry, you did a great job. Like, you can relax. But I do have a little pushback, which is that, my concern about the credit card minimums or debit card minimums, it's more of an issue with, I think, credit card minimums, is that, the businesses often pay both a per transaction and a percentage fee for every transaction. So, I wonder if there isn't some way to say like, okay, if you're going to put it on a credit card, and I know this is already there and it's like done really, really badly, but that if you can say like, you get the way it works now is you can have a 3% refund or you get a 3% discount if you pay in cash, but it honestly rarely works. But I think there needs to be a solution that kind of sees both sides of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So you're basically talking about, the cost it takes for a business to then handle the credit card transaction. Just to make
right.
Sure
It is not free to them.
Yeah. So just to illuminate a little bit more on, so a lot of what this bill came from is that this is existing federal policy under the Dodd-Frank Act. So we actually were sort of working to just make this more enforceable on a local level. This does have precedent in that it was a part of, Dodd-Frank in previous years. But also I completely hear what you're saying. The $10 was a thoughtful choice in that we thought that it would give ample, room to handle those credit card transactions. So that definitely was a conversation we had. But I hear your concern and I appreciate you bringing it up, and I'll let Councilmember Powers know.
All right. Thank you so much, Kay. I don't see any further questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll next move on to Eric from District Attorney Bragg's office.
Hi, thanks, Kyle. Good afternoon, everyone. So similarly to Kay, this is also my first CB6 full board meeting. So great seeing everyone. I know there's some familiar faces that I've seen so far. So just to introduce myself really quickly, my name is Eric Straza. I'm the new Community Engagement Coordinator at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, specifically for Mid-Manhattan and the CB6 area as well. So there were a few things in my report. I could go through and give like a real quick top line summary of each of them. I know it wasn't very long, if that's okay with Kyle. If not, I do also have one additional announcement to make that actually came out after our report was submitted.
Yeah, so just go with the additional announcement and then we'll open questions.
Sure, yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything like that, wants me to elaborate on any of the 4 items I included in the report, please let me know. The only additional announcement, I'll make this quick, is an expansion in our hate crimes unit. Unfortunately, there has been, if you guys have seen, an increase in the number of hate crimes, specifically in Manhattan. So to address this, DA Bragg, along with the executive team in the office, is expanding that unit. It's basically building out the team, giving some support to the team from the executive branch of the office as well. Some of these cases tend to be more complex, so we're also cross-designating attorneys from the trial bureaus who usually field, once an arrest is made or something like that, after conduct has occurred, if it's reported to the office, or an arrest is made, a trial bureau attorney would handle something like that. So they would also be cross-designated to the unit, so they'd be able to help out with that. Other changes and other things we'd be doing with that would be increasing the unit's proactive investigations and prosecutions, ensuring that internal staff and also police officers can receive specialized training, because obviously there are either sensitive matters or more complex matters that have to do with these cases. And then also things like expanding community engagement and strengthening victim services and support, things like that. So if you or anyone else knows of somebody that has been a victim of a hate crime and would like to report it to our office, we encourage you to do so. I've actually put my contact information in the chat, but I think I accidentally only sent it to the hosts and the panel members. So I'll send that again to everyone. The extension for the hate crimes unit will be the first 6 digits of my number, and then the last 4 will be 9082 if anyone needs to make that call. So I'll send that now, and again, happy to field any questions or anything like that.
Thank you so much, Eric. Are there any questions for District Attorney Bragg's office? All right, it was a great report, and I'm not seeing anything. Appreciate it, Eric, and welcome to the CB6 family. We look forward to working with you.
Thanks a lot. Looking forward to working with everyone as well. Thanks.
We'll now go to Bobby from Parks.
Good evening, everyone. Great to be here. Great seeing everyone. Kyle, love your shirt. So real quick, we have a few events this month that I just wanted to highlight at the Constance Baker Motley Recreation Center. This Saturday from 12 to 3, we have a fun fair, which is basically going to be a carnival type fair inside the recreation center. We'll have family events for kids. We'll have some activities for adults as well. So we'll have something for all ages if you want to come by, stop by with your families. Next Friday, the 22nd, from 3:30 to 5, we're going to do a little Earth Day event. We're calling it Lend a Hand to Save the Land. So with this event, you can learn fun ways to reduce earthly footprints. We're going to be working on creative ideas for reusing, recycling, and repurposing. We're also accepting old cans and jars as well. You can drop them off at the recreation center if you want to donate something. Just the only thing we ask if you do that is just please rinse them out before you bring them to us. The next day, Saturday, April 23rd, from 12 to 3, we're going to be doing a Women's and Girls in Sports Fitness Day. So we'll be highlighting some of our female fitness instructors in our center and in our agency. And we're also going to be partnering with the Wendy Hilliard Foundation, and we're going to be doing some gymnastics activities for children. And finally, on Thursday, April 28th, from 6:30 to 7:45, we're doing a neon glow-in-the-dark spin challenge. We did it a few months ago, and it was very popular. So we got some increased demand for it, so we decided to put it in the agenda for this month. I'm going to include my email in the chat. If anyone has any questions, feel free to send me an email. If there's any also questions now, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Bobby. Are there any questions for Bobby in the parks? All right, seeing none, Bobby, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy.
All right, we'll now move on to the public session. Jesus and Brendan, has anyone signed up to speak in the public session?
Yes, a few people have signed up to speak in the public session. Our first speaker is Ms. Claire Lika. She is a resident of another district, not ours, but she wishes to speak to this board on the Success Academy Union Square, which is located in our district in the Washington Irving campus. So Ms. Lika, you have 3 minutes to make your remarks. And she does not appear to be here. So we'll move on. Next is Mr. Tyler Nicholson from the Sophie Davis School of Medicine at City College, who wishes to speak to the board on his organization's Murray Hill Community Health Assessment Survey. Mr. Nicholson, you have 3 minutes to make your remarks. You may begin.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Tyler, and I am a second-year student from the Sophie Davis School of Medicine at City College of New York. I was originally joined here by another group member named Lillian, but she was unable to make it due to a last-minute emergency, so I'll be presenting our health project on behalf of my group. So our school was founded with the mission of serving underserved communities and preventing health adversities. With that said, we have been privileged enough to be assigned Murray Hill as our community of interest. Our goal is to assess the health needs of Murray Hill so we can properly address potential health disparities and develop plans to overcome them. And we're conducting this through a web-based survey, and we're using it to assess the community's socio-demographic characteristics and health outcomes. And we encourage you to take our survey if you live, work, or spend most of your time in the Murray Hill community. It's an anonymous survey, and it's optional to include your email at the end. The results will only be shared with the community board and used as data in our class project. If you have any further questions, I will link the email of my professor, Dr. Fry, in the chat, along with my email and Lillian's, and feel free to email me any of your concerns. I'll also link the survey in the chat, and thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you very much, Tyler. Next, we've got L. Rowe, who is a resident of this district and who wishes to speak on secondhand smoke. And we do not seem to have her here, so we'll move on. Next on the list is Michelle Winfield, who wishes to speak to the board, who is a resident of this district and wishes to speak to the board on the topic of street co-namings. Mrs. Winfield, you have 3 minutes to make your remarks. You may begin.
Good evening. My name is Michelle D. Winfield, a resident of Manhattan Community Board 6, and I'm speaking for 2 reasons. Number 1, the Manhattan Community Board 6 in the past has always been the gold standard of how Manhattan community boards worked. However, in January 2020, the Transportation Committee, with permission of the board, allowed an incorrect statement to be placed on the Community Board 6's website and remained for 2 years and still counting. It reads, the Transportation Committee has a moratorium on street code namings. That statement is false. The Corporation Council Opinions number 108608 states, while matters may be referred to a committee for study and recommendation, final board action may only be taken at a public meeting of the full board at which a quorum is present. Number 2, I am urging the Manhattan Community Board 6 to place on its agenda a presentation of the committee to honor May Edward Chin, the first African-American female to graduate from Bellevue Hospital Medical College in 1926, now known as New York University Grossman School of Medicine. She interned at Harlem Hospital and was denied hospital privileges everywhere in New York due to a segregated society. Dr. Chen at the time was living at East 27th Street and 3rd Avenue in Manhattan. Chen opened a practice in Harlem and rode in ambulances, saving lives before the injured reached hospitals she was denied from entering. In 1940, Mayor LaGuardia forced Harlem Hospital to give Dr. Chen hospital privileges. Later, Dr. Chen assisted in groundbreaking work on the Pap smear, perfecting techniques to fight against cervical cancer, benefiting women worldwide. For 2 years, this board has denied the community the opportunity to come before them on these issues. I participated with community members asking for signatures for the East 29th Street and First Avenue Northwest corner to be co-named. I urge you to consider approving a street co-naming in honor of Dr. May Edward Chin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. And just want to quickly address that this is actually on the agenda today, a street co-naming process. As you know, every committee is at their will to determine their workflow. And since we did not have a proper process for street co-namings, that is something that I've asked can people move? And so that is something that I asked our transportation committee to create, which they diligently have done. So we will hear that today will be up for vote. And I hope that you can bring that great submission through that process. So thank you very much, Michelle.
All right, next on the list, our final speaker for the evening is Mr. Matt McLeod, a resident of this district who wishes to speak on road safety. Mr. McLeod, you have 3 minutes to make your remarks. You may begin.
Hi, everyone. I hope you are all well. I'm hoping to get the community board's assistance in addressing a potential safety issue on the FDR. About 100 meters south of the East 25th Street pedestrian bridge, there are no streetlights in the median of the FDR. There appear to be 2 streetlight hookups, but no streetlights. They're missing. This results in poor visibility, particularly at night and during rainy conditions. I have witnessed at least 10 motor vehicle accidents here in the last 7 to 8 months. I have also filed tickets with both the Department of Transportation and 311. I'm hoping the community board can please help expedite the placement of streetlights here to improve road safety for our city. Thank you for your time.
All right, Mr. McLeod, I see that you submitted, when you signed up, you submitted your testimony in writing. So what we'll do is we'll take that and then we'll address it as a constituent service request. And we'll be in touch with you if we need additional information. And that concludes our speakers list for the public session. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move on to the previous meeting's full board minutes. The minutes from the March 9th full board meeting were distributed to board members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. So board members, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the March 9th full board meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. I'll now deliver my chair's report. We did actually, the point that I would like to bring up today is something that we heard from our electeds earlier on today about the open meetings law. As mentioned at our last full board, we devoted our executive committee meeting in March to the discussion of how we want the board to proceed. At that meeting, we further discussed the data that we had accrued from the survey that we had sent out to board members, as well as previous surveys discussing the public's feelings about the virtual option. We went through the possibilities. So we went through returning to person. We discussed going hybrid. We discussed going virtual. The results of that survey showed that a overwhelming majority, almost 80+% of this board said that they would like to continue meeting virtually. So if anyone is interested in that particular conversation, it is up on our YouTube channel where you can view the discussion in detail. But what came out of that was a unanimous decision by the executive committee to continue to meet virtually up until August. Part of the context for this too was that the expiration date for the state of emergency did end during that executive, or was supposed to end during that executive committee meeting, but was actually extended, the state of emergency, about an hour before we were set to meet. So this also set up the idea of this being kicked down the road constantly month by month, which puts our board in an almost impossible situation to have to secure space, to make sure that everyone is coordinated to make quorum in person and so on and so forth. And so the executive committee made that decision based on all of that context. Now, what we heard from our electeds earlier today is that during the budget approval, there was language around the open meetings law that the borough president and Senator Hoylman are particularly devoted to working on. And so some of this language is that it included creating an option for hybrid meetings for the next 2 years, but would then trigger a remote option for fully remote meetings when a state or local emergency order is in place. So that means that when their emergency orders are not in place, there will be a requirement for community boards to reach a quorum in person, but would allow for a virtual option for attendees to join those meetings. Now, if that sounds nonsensical to many of you, you are not alone, because that presents actually the exact same problems that we are dealing with right now. So the vote of the executive committee was to continue virtually up until August, where we would then reevaluate the needs of this board and the needs of the public. So we will continue to move forward on that front and work very closely with the borough president and Senator Hoylman on advocating for further change to allow for an option for community boards to meet virtually. And I'll conclude my report with that. And we'll move on to Jesus for the district manager's report.
Thank you, Kyle. I'll keep my report brief since the topic of the open meetings law was already addressed by our state elected officials and by you. I will say that, as Kyle mentioned, we have been trying to poll our members, and he alluded to the results of those surveys. We are currently right now running a survey for the general public. And we put it in our newsletter, and we put it in our most recent blast of meeting updates. So I'm going to put that survey in the chat right now. If you've already filled it out as a member of the general public, you don't need to fill it out again. We have your response. We're collecting them still, and then we'll release the results in our next newsletter. But if you have not heard of this survey, or you have not filled it out yet as a member of the general public, I have put the link in the chat, and I highly encourage you to please fill it out. We want your feedback on this topic. And yes, as you've heard in the budget, there were some modifications to the open meetings law. I'm not going to call them modernizations because I don't think they are, but modifications nonetheless. I've gone through it line by line. There are some things that give me pause. There are some things that I feel need a little bit of interpretation because they're not clear necessarily on the face of it. And if they do say what I think they say, I want to be doubly sure. And I'm going to be seeking guidance from the state's Committee on Open Government. They are the ones that interpret this, the open meetings law. And then I'll have a chance to do that because it was incorporated into the official text of the open meetings law that is on the Committee on Open Government website, or COOG. It was on COOG's website just yesterday. And so I was able to read it, and it'll give me an opportunity to reach out for guidance and interpretation on some of the clauses from them. It'll give me an opportunity to talk about this again with the chair of the board, Kyle. And also it'll give me an opportunity to perhaps brief the executive committee yet again, because you got the gist of it, but there are a few things in there that haven't been touched on. I just want to make sure that I understood them correctly before we start sort of saying exactly what's in there. But what I'll do is, once I've gotten clarity on those things, I'll put together a sort of plain English version of what the law now says, and we will send it along to the board members. Thank you very much. Unless there are questions, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Jesus. We'll now move on to the treasurer's report.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. Our OMB's budget summary report for our board from April 1st shows that our personal services budget for the year is still $237,033, and our balance is $79,068 with $157,964 spent or obligated. Current budget for other than personal services, excluding rent, is $161,901. This figure contains $119,646 of retained street fair funds. Our remaining OTPS budget is $42,255 with a balance of $37,762 with $4,492 spent or obligated. Finally, we have a rent budget of $163,642 and has already been used to pay our rent obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year going to June 30th, 2022. Does anyone have any questions?
Seeing
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. We have now arrived at our committee reports and resolutions. And in order to conduct an efficient meeting, I'm going to reiterate the ground rules we discussed at the top of the meeting. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. Board members, if you have a question or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. Again, the chat function should not be used for board business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information such as an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a board member is given the floor to speak, I will first identify you. And to the members of the public, please note that during this session of the meeting, we only take questions from members of the board. And last but not least, we are required by New York State law to have a transcript of this meeting. So please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Again, tonight we are using a digital ballot. Our CB6 staff will post a link to the ballot in the chat. So please open this ballot or copy and paste this link into your browser, and then select your name from the list of board members and select your vote on each resolution as it is presented. Do not hit submit until later in the evening after the final resolution has been presented. At the end of the meeting, once you have indicated all of your votes on your ballot, only then should you submit the ballot. You will not be able to submit the ballot unless you vote on every resolution. If you plan on abstaining, please select abstain. Final vote counts will be announced after the second roll call, so please stick around for that. And if any part of our voting procedure is unclear, please raise your hand through Zoom, and our board staff will be able to address your question and provide you support. All right, so the link should be in the chat. Please click on it or copy and paste it into your browser. And we will begin with the Transportation Committee, who will be represented by Brian tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I have two resolutions to present to you for your consideration. I'll explain the first one. Our first one is about an application from the Jet LLC for an intercity bus stop at 304 East 42nd Street between 2nd and 1st Avenues. This is an existing bus stop that is used by the M42, which runs throughout the day. The proposal was for 2 daily pickups, Monday through Fridays at 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., Saturdays and Sundays at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. There will be also drop-offs Mondays and Fridays at 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. and Saturdays, Sundays at 3 p.m. and 11 p.m. Just in summary, our resolution was that the committee had no objection to the establishment of this new bus stop sharing for the corporation that applied. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, seeing no questions, are there any motions? Anne?
Yeah, I'll move to approve this, to support it, to call a vote. Call to question? Is that what I need to do?
All right, Sandy?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. So please go to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 1A. And do not hit submit. And for those of you who are not using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. All right. And do you want to go to the second resolution as people are?
Yes, I wrote this one. Updating Manhattan Community Board 6's street code naming guidelines. I will give you some background. There was a voice vote meeting 2 years ago where the Transportation Committee decided, what now seems to be informally, to establish a moratorium on considering applications to us for street code namings. The larger picture is that anybody can apply to the city for the street code namings, and the community board can serve as an additional endorsement along their process in the cases where the community boards actually do process street code naming applications. It can help a lot to get that endorsement before it goes to the local council members and to the authorities in the city that consider it. There were some other community boards that had simply turned down considering any whatsoever. We are allowed to do that, but in recent months, we had some discussions about getting back into considering our own applications from within our own district. And there's a little bit of history on this. There was some angst, particularly for a co-naming that occurred a few years ago, where the board received some incomplete information. So that was a concern for some board members. There was also concern about, sort of, I would say, workload on the committee, because transportation is very busy and we don't split up that workload at all. We usually have very full agendas. At the end of the day, the process which we decided to form a solution to this was to have a task force to draft up a resolution and collect feedback. I did not get a lot of non-supportive feedback to this or a whole lot of concerns. We did have a draft resolution circulate the board that was actually a resolution passed by another board that was kind of a little tough on co-namings. In the end, I considered all the information that we had and drafted a resolution that establishes a simple set of guidelines and a process for us to both accept new applications and consider them at the meetings. In addition, it sets a reasonable expectation for the public, so to let them know that this is a priority to us, but it is not our highest priority, and that some applications may get bumped a meeting or two in case we are reacting to a lot of time-critical transportation issues. Other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think it reflects feedback that we've gotten from the board, and I think it was a particular concern of the committee that the full board and members of the board didn't have any specific objections to the path that we were going in or the terms we were spelling out. Because I haven't heard anything, because this is circulated so much, I'm confident this will pass tonight. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Brian. There are a couple of questions. We'll start with Claude. Claude.
Hi, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. I have two concerns with the resolution, and one has to do with accuracy. And I hear people saying that it was unofficial, it was not official, it was this, it was that. The board follows certain procedures. Concerns come to the committees. The committees have the discretion to endorse, not endorse, or whatever on any concern, to debate that concern, to discuss that concern, and move forward and make changes through the process of presenting a resolution to the full board. Committees don't have the power to change procedures that exist with the board. Now, since 2015, our community board has done over 5 street co-namings. So obviously we had guidelines which we used. We did a street co-naming for Father Damien. We did a street co-naming for Mother Teresa. We did one for Civil Court, Children's Court. We did one for Ms. Magazine. And the last one we did was for Harry T. Burley. That's over a 5-year period in 2019. And then in January, the Transportation Committee met, discussed street co-naming, and they did not take a official vote. They took a straw vote. If you read the minutes of January 6th of the Transportation Committee, it says a straw vote. That's a consensus. It was 11-3. They did not submit any resolution to the board to change the policy of the board. I just like for us to be accurate in what we're doing and what we're stating. So that was my first concern. The second concern with the resolution is that in some places, I don't think the tone is very good for a community board. For example, if you can put up the resolution and look at line 40, is that possible?
Yeah, we'll get it up.
Yep, just give me a
I'm
minute.
looking it up. It says to consider co-naming requests as time and other circumstances allow to not disrupt the normal operations or urgent needs of the board or its standing committees. So this,
no, don't interrupt me. I'm speaking.
Hold up, Claude. I want to give Brian the floor to respond to the first point.
I just wanted to clarify that this is feedback that we've gotten as a preference, and that's how it exactly is said in the whereas. It is not a declaration of how we always feel about them.
My first point was that the procedure of the board is that we operate through resolutions. We don't operate through consensus votes on a committee. Well, there's nowhere that we operate by a committee making a straw vote. And if you read the minutes, it says straw vote. That's not my language. That's your committee's language. So,
yeah, I do want to recognize what you and Michelle have brought up on this. So obviously, this has predated my leadership as the chair of this board when this was taking place. The idea is that my understanding was that this is not a change in procedure, but a determination by a committee on how they want to handle their workflow.
I understand you, but that's not my point.
Let me just finish, Claude, right? Because I'm answering your question. So the idea is that I did ask for the committee to put together an official policy because we didn't technically have one. And so we want to create something that is, as you have mentioned, in resolution format that can be posted for everyone. So I don't want to relitigate what happened, several years ago. I do want to discuss the merits of this particular resolution and the process that the committee has come together to determine. So I understand all of your points and I hear you on that. And that's
to that point,
yeah,
it's the resolution line 24 where it says we voted to support. I don't think we should put something in the resolution that's not accurate. That's my point.
So, okay, so your issue is about the language that says voted to support.
Yes, that's not an accurate language. That's not true.
So it is accurate if you see that it says the Transportation Committee had that vote. It's in the minutes that we had that vote.
They did not vote. They took a consensus. It says a straw poll, a consensus. You did not vote. You did not move it to the full board. There was no official vote. That's all. And I'm saying that that line in this resolution is not accurate. That's where it is to the point.
Okay, so this seems to be a little bit of a semantics issue. So I'll leave that out there, but I do want to get to other people on this as well.
Yeah, but you cut off my second point.
Oh, so yeah, Claude, go ahead if there's something. So I didn't know if the other hands.
I said line 40 is it's just I'm dealing only with the tone of the resolution. Okay. I don't think that's an appropriate tone for a community board to take. It's almost putting us up against the community. And the community, I don't know how you react to saying that bringing a concern before the board is disruptive to the normal operations and the urgent needs of the board. That's not appropriate language to be in a resolution.
Do you have an edit, Claude?
No, I don't. I'm leaving it to you guys. I'm just making my concerns known. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Claude.
You're welcome.
I mean, I'll make a point here. The transportation agenda is not just full every month. It's full of things that involve issues where people can get run over by vehicles and things like that. And it's also full of things that DOT comes to us that probably DOT shouldn't actually come to us for everything. Like we should trust the city to do a lot of things on their own without asking us site by site whether a curb cut is needed or a bike lane is needed or a parking space is needed. And yet that's been the thing where they come to us and they say we have a couple of weeks to respond at most. We have to do it. And then we have these long 2-hour transportation committee meetings. And so again, this was communicated to me and I wrote it in the whereas section, not as a tone of the board that we were resolving that this was our language, but that these was preferences of people who had communicated with me about what their concerns were, and I wanted to speak to that. I do not feel strongly about anything that's in a whereas, because it only adds character to the resolution. What counts in every resolution is what we resolve. I think first, I would like to hear if anybody has any surprise or urgent edits that they want to make to the resolve sections, and I am absolutely willing to hear any motions about modifying the whereases after that, because I think that ultimately it does not impact the substance of the resolution, including the part about, you know, factually what happened during a transportation committee meeting in 2020. It can be left out. It may make some of the other stuff not make sense, but at the same time, ultimately, we can try to trim that or reword that so that we don't maybe legitimize the idea that there was an official moratorium. That said, the entire purpose of this resolution is to delegitimize anything except this resolution.
Exactly. Thank you. Let's go to some of these other hands up. Sandy, go ahead.
We do have a resolution from November 14th, 2018. And the title of it is On-Street Co-Naming Criteria for Community Board 6. So is this a modification of that resolution or a response to it? It seems like we already, I mean, according to the name of the resolution, we already do have criteria. That's question number one. Question number two is there's no vote. I wondered what the vote was in the committee. It's not shown.
Yes, that was just a slight typo. There was a committee vote on this, and the committee voted unanimously in favor of this resolution. 7 in favor, nobody opposed, nobody abstaining.
And I guess I would agree with Claude a little bit about some of the tone, and that it sounds like we're too busy as a board to deal with this. And also the last whereas I think is a little bit out of character with how we write all our resolutions, that none of them are approved until they pass the full board. So I wondered why that would be included. But I guess, you know, unfortunately there's 3 items there, but I wondered how this differs from the November 14th, 2018 resolution.
I didn't utilize that prior resolution as part of my prior work. I am intending to override anything that's been done up to this point. And the model resolution that I was presented as a draft to try to build this resolution was far harsher than this. It essentially, this other community board that wrote a resolution declared we will only consider co-naming requests twice a year. I wrote to try to relax that and make it so that we could not have that kind of restriction in there. Since we don't have such a restriction, we probably don't need context in the resolution, in the whereases, to explain why we did not restrict it so much, especially because, to my understanding, as much as we had concerns on this board about things, that's more of a generalized thing, and nobody actually said, I want to limit co-naming considerations to several times a year. So again, this is not, you can just redact entire whereas sections here. And I really appreciate if we use Robert's rules to make motions to do these amendments right now, if we're only dealing with whereases and not with the resolved parts, because the resolved part seems to deliver what everybody is asking for.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. We'll go to Anne.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is like problematic, and it's also like, this is a very long resolution, and maybe, maybe it's time to send it back. What we are doing now is really committee business. I don't know that this is particularly timely. So maybe it's worth sending it back to committee. Claude, you should be there. We can do wordsmithing at the time. And like that might be just a more productive way to reach a good conclusion on this.
Well, the issue is that someone's trying to give us a co-naming.
Brian, let me just answer that. So I don't think we need to refer this back to committee. The committee has already discussed this and voted on it and given ample opportunity for participation in its construction. If there are any, as Brian mentioned, any motions to make any amendments to this, people are free to do that. But I'm not hearing that. If there is something objectionable to in this resolution, you're more than free to vote against it. So we can proceed in that way. I saw Marty's hand up next.
Yeah, you're not supposed to talk on an issue if you're going to make a motion, and I'm making a motion to refer back to committee. It really isn't written well.
Okay, there is a motion by Marty to refer back to committee. Is that seconded by anyone?
I'll second it. Sandra.
Seconded by Sandy.
Second.
All right, so let's take
Second.
All right, we've had it seconded, so we'll take a vote on this.
All right, so since it's not built into the ballot, it seems like the best way to do this vote is to do just a Zoom hand vote. So all those who are in favor of sending this back to the committee for further consideration, please raise your Zoom hand. Okay, we'll do a few more seconds. All right, I'm counting 21 hands. Alex and Brendan, do you confirm that?
Yep, I can confirm that.
I do as well.
That is not a majority.
All right, so the motion fails to refer back to committee.
Mr. Chair, could we actually get a vote in the negative?
Sure.
Can everyone lower their Zoom hands?
The host can do that as well.
And just a note, this comes up in your participants panel. It tells you how many hands are raised. We have 38 participants and we had 21 raise their hands.
Yeah, we've noticed that.
Okay. Isn't 21 a majority of 38?
Yeah.
Jesus is a participant.
Those are panelists.
My apologies. I'm sorry.
Right.
I was doing the full board as if everyone were here. My apologies. But let's go ahead and do what you said and do the negative as well. This
is for the negatives.
Can everyone mute, please? Because they're, and please put your hands down because this is unclear right now. So please put your hands down and please mute. Thank you. All right, Jesus, please continue.
Okay, so we had 21 people who voted to send it back to committee. Now, can we have the votes, those who have not voted on the first try, of people who want to not send it back to committee? And Secretary Bondi, while they're voting, can you just confirm given the people that are present or that answered the roll call, what our quorum is, what our halfway point is?
I'll do that based on the number of panelists that are shown here, but I'll have to also confirm that the panelists are only board members, so give me a minute.
Not sure I understand, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry, the district manager is asking for a halfway point in reference to what?
Of the members who are here so that we can get what the majority is. I'm looking at the roster that was filled out for the first roll call, and
Right.
it shows that 32 people answered the roll call. If that is
Right.
if that is correct,
But during a vote, it's those that are answering the vote, yay or nay, not how many people were at the meeting at the start.
okay, then in Robert's rules, it does say that you can assume that those who were present or remain to be present, but if someone notices that they're not, then they don't, then we can do like what you're suggesting. So we'll pick one and whichever the board wants to do.
All right, what are the votes for both? So what are the votes for the nays?
So we've got
Mr.
11,
Chair,
it seems.
With
So
your
we've got-
permission, I'd like to be recognized.
Hold up one second. I just want to hear from Jesus first.
We've got 21 people who voted to send it back to committee. We've got 11 people who did not vote for that. That is a total of 32 people.
Which is how many people were in attendance anyway?
That is something that Matt is counting, and yes.
Well, we're showing 38 panelists here. One of them is Jesus, right? And the other one is Brendan. So that would be 36.
And Alex,
And-
so
yeah, me
35.
too.
Well, hold on, I don't know. Okay.
In the
Yep,
roll call,
okay.
32.
So
in the roll
35.
call, in the roll call, 32 people answered that they were here.
I arrived a few minutes late.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be recognized if I may.
Hold up, Lou. I'll call on you after. Let's just figure out
In the
this.
roll call, 32 people indicated that they were here. That is 32. We've just had a vote where 21 people voted to send this back to committee and 11 people voted not to. That equals 32. So, but Sandro indicated that we should count by who's actually here right now. So that is what Secretary Bondi was doing. So what was that?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. District Leader. I did not indicate that. I said we should actually respect those that are voting yay or nay, not whether they signed in and walked away from their computers.
That is a correct analysis and a correct procedure, Mr. Chair. The people voting in opposition to a motion to refer should be asked to raise their hands and counted clearly, because there may be some people who have abstained and others who have abstained for cause.
Right. Yeah, we're going to that second part.
This is a procedural motion and there are no abstentions on a procedural motion.
All right, well, I mean, judging by the participants and the panelists, -3 for you, Brendan and Alex, it's 35 people. I don't know what you do with 17 and a half being half of that, whether you round up or down, but
you round up.
Those are our numbers.
Okay, if there are 35 people, if there are 35 people that Secretary Bondi has counted, 18 then would be more than half, and we had more than 18 people. We had 21 vote to send it back, so it goes back.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, so that does mean we do not have official modern process for the street code naming. So I guess we'll go back to the committee to rediscuss. So if anybody has issues of language, please attend that meeting because that was partly the reason for this vote. So please do attend the next meeting where it'll come up again. All right, and Brian, do you have a report or do you want to waive your report?
No, it's waived.
All right, thank you, Brian. We'll now move on to Health and Human Services. Anju.
Yeah, so just a couple quick updates and reminders. So we do have our series, our upcoming webinar on series of healthy living in the community. The next one is on May 5th at 6 p.m. And the topic is about caring for your loved ones with dementia. We have 2 speakers from NYU Langone Health who will be in attendance. So if you're available, we'd recommend that you'd come check it out or to learn more. We also have our committee meeting tomorrow at 6:30. A few things on the agenda for those who are interested in attending. We'll be talking about our recommendations from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs about closing the Manhattan VA hospital, as well as discussing workplace vaccine requirements. And we'll continue our discussion from last month on fiscal year 2024 budget requests. That's it.
All right, thank you very much, Anju. Are there any questions for the Health and Human Services Committee? All right, seeing none, we'll now move on to Public Safety. Matt?
It'll be very quick tonight. No real report, but do join us next week on Thursday. We will get an update from the District Attorney's Office on a follow-up item from February with the Small Business Alliance. Brendan and I were at a meeting this morning with them on that. There's a lot going on, so please join us, and hopefully some members of the business community will join us as well.
Awesome, thank you, Matt. Are there any questions for the Public Safety Committee? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to bylaws. B. Is B here tonight? Was she on?
No, she's not. She's not.
Sean, do you have a report on behalf of the Bylaws Committee? Any updates?
Sure. We've met a few times and we've gone through several sections of the bylaws. We have another meeting coming up in May. I believe, the plan is to get something to the full board. If I recall, it's before summer for sure. So I think that's, I think that we're planning on, and if anybody else is on, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're planning on concluding in May.
Okay. All right, I see.
We're actually, I believe, hoping to
ahead.
present this fall.
Okay, thank you, Mara. I think you said presenting in the fall. Jim, you have a question?
Yeah, my understanding is that at least I think when we did the last revision of the bylaws, we get the proposed revisions at one meeting and then we vote on them at the next meetings. So it's akin to as we do elections. So I just wanted to throw that out.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And again, just encourage everybody who would like a say in how the bylaws are modernized and the language and everything to please attend those meetings. So please continue to work with B and attend those meetings. All right. Thank you very much, Sean. We'll move to Environment and Parks. Kevin.
Thank you, Kyle. Greetings, everybody. In the interest of time, I will waive a committee report.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kevin. We'll move on to Business Affairs and Licensing. Claire.
Hello, everyone. As been the case recently, a lot of new applicants, which is exciting. I'll entertain any questions that folks have. Adam?
A bundle, call to question.
Anne, is that a second?
I had a question about Serafina, and I was at this meeting and I was actually, I guess, speaking as a member of the community, expressing concern that their west side, their Broadway and 55th Street, I think it is, location, what they used for how they use their sidewalk space is problematic, and they've had some complaints there. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't support this or have no objection, but I think it's inappropriate to say that no members of the community spoke against it or spoke I mean, again, I wasn't exactly, I was saying like they're problematic. This is something we should watch out for. And I'm not quite sure that was captured.
I think it was captured right above the whereas that you're referring to. We don't really include this as a blanket statement in our resolutions, whereas when the establishment installs any seating outdoors, they'll be in full compliance with the city's outdoor dining and seating rules. So I think that did address your concern, and as a committee, we're really like big on second chances and kind of just seeing how things shake out. So you are like welcome to vote as however.
Okay,
you like.
no, that seems fair enough, and I do want to support, but I do think it's a location that we should keep an eye on.
Definitely. And there's like a ton of restaurants that the office has really been really great, like following up on, and whenever someone notices something that doesn't look right, we act on it. And I would say that the representatives of that particular establishment were really responsive in the meeting and eager to, fix any concerns should they arise. But I think that we shouldn't really start them from a negative place personally.
All right.
Thanks for reminding us.
No, works for me.
All right.
Just keep it on track.
Thank you. There was a motion to bundle. Is that seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Letty. All right, is our call to question?
Question.
All right, that's Jim. All right, please go to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 6A through 6G. And do not hit submit yet. And for those of you who are not using a digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. So while people are doing that, do you have a report, Claire?
I'm just going to briefly say we did also talk about the casino resolution as a committee, and we decided to continue the conversation in land use. So you'll see the resolution in Sandy's report. But I just want to thank the committee members for getting started on that conversation. And as we have been discussing in recent months, Anton has been doing a really great job leading the open restaurants initiative, and that is continuing as well. But other than that, I will stop there, and that's all from me.
Just, Mr. Chair, on information, we just ignore our ballot for what was it, 1B?
So I think this will be like how we do in the past, just put anything for that, and the board staff will remove
ignore
that.
it.
Yeah, afterwards. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. No further questions. So we'll move on to the next committee. Sandy with land use.
Great. We have two resolutions. The first one, as discussed briefly during our elected officials report, is opposing the development of a casino or other gaming facility on the Community District 6 waterfront. And I think the main thrust of this is that we want our waterfront to be public, and we have been advocating for that for quite a long time. And we don't fear, the consensus was that this was not a public use of the waterfront. Questions? Adam, you had your hand up?
I'm sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so are there any questions about 7A? And if not, is there a question?
Call the question.
Sorry, Adam, did you have a hand up?
I'll second Letty's motion.
Okay, so Letty called to question, Adam seconding. All right, so please go to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 7A and do not hit submit yet. And for those of you who are not using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally.
Yep.
And everyone, please make sure you're on mute if you're not speaking, because we do get the background noise. Thank you.
Great. And our next resolution is supporting the repurposing of the parking area adjacent to Stuyvesant Cove Park into public space. And Adam is the author of this, so I think he'd be happy to answer any questions that people have.
All right, Dan, I see you have a hand up, a question. Yep.
No, I'm sorry, I did that by accident.
Oh, okay, no problem. Marty, you have a hand up?
Yeah, how does this fit in the east side reconstruction? Because there will be a wall along Stuyvesant Cove Park as it's being built, and there's a concrete wall that's about 10-12 feet high that's under construction on the north end of the park to 20th Street, and then when the north end of the park is finished, they're going to then continue that wall from 20th Street to Murphy Brothers on the Stuyvesant Cove Park part of the area. There'll be a berm that comes up, and eventually we'll see the benches and the trees, etc., in existence. The parking lot will be between the exit of the FDR Drive and Avenue C, and I'm not quite sure what we expect to be there. If you can, I'm all for it. I'm all for public space.
And I guess,
what will it be?
Adam, would you like to answer that, or shall I?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So this is sort of an addendum to the larger ESCR project. So in all the renderings that they've shown us, has been the wall, and all the enhancements that are to the east of basically the FDR. However, once all of that is complete, the plan is to return that area, which is now used for staging, back to a paid parking lot. We don't think that's the highest and best use of this space, especially after, a multi-billion-dollar project. And so what this resolution is just sort of to advocate for a revisioning of that space during the construction period and after it's done, when they're done with the construction and staging.
Are we looking for it to be demapped and put under the Parks Department? Because then it should.
This resolution is just to call for a plan and to replace the subsidy that the current parking lot with the EDC money goes to Solar One. So basically, it's just that simple. So this is for the first step of a longer process.
So the Parks Committee should start taking this up as well.
I think that any committee on the board who would like to assist, it would be welcome.
All right.
Lou has his hand up.
My understanding is that the flood wall will be ending someplace just south of the parking lot. So in point of fact, the flood prevention activity is not going to be impacting on the space, and it would be therefore available to become public space or an addition to the park, which is what we've been supporting for a very long time.
Do we have anyone to call the question?
All the question.
Okay.
Second.
All right, Sandro, and then, sorry, I forget who that was. Second by
Letty,
Letty. Thank you.
I'm moving motions tonight.
I know. So please go to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 7B.
And while you're voting, just that lots of things coming up with land use about sort of general city policy. So we continue to talk about many things. Come to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And please do not hit submit yet. And if you're using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote during the second roll call. All right, so let's move on to the next committee. Move on to housing and homelessness. So Rich, go ahead.
Yes, aside from saying that we are following tenant protections, I'm going to waive my report for tonight.
All right, thank you very much, Rich. Are there any questions for the Housing and Homelessness Committee? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to budget and governmental affairs. Reshma? Reshma, you there?
I do not see Reshma here at the moment.
Okay. Jesus, are you aware what we're supposed to do in this situation when the chair's not there? We do need to get some of these done.
A vice chair, so maybe another member of that committee could just present the resolutions.
As a matter of parliamentary procedure, Mr. Chair, a member of the committee can be nominated by the committee to act in the absence of the permanent chair, and this is such an occasion.
Okay. So can someone from the committee nominate someone?
Seema has her hand up.
Yeah, Seema's not on the committee though, but Seema, do you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say, I wonder if someone wants to message Reshma, because I saw her earlier hopping on and off and on and off. So I wonder if she's just having a technical issue, in which case we could just move on and then come back to this committee.
Thank you. Would you be able to reach out to her, please, Seema?
I just have her email, so I'll shoot her a note there.
All right, let's
I texted her.
Okay, thank you. Let's briefly amend this to go to youth and education while we get in touch with Reshma with her technical difficulties. So John?
I'll be very brief. I'm waiving my report. We did not meet in March.
Okay, thank you, John, for the
some people here know I could talk at length.
I know.
But I will not. Thank you.
But John, we got some time to kill here.
Okay.
And people have lives to live.
Marty, do you have something?
Yeah, it's in regards to the two resolutions that are going to be presented. Our board has religiously not do funding resolutions. That has always been part of our budget priorities. If we open the door to these, and I'm for both of them insofar as the idea that money should go for them, but once we open the door for funding, then every committee is open to put in funding resolutions every single meeting, and that is why we stopped it. Well, before even I was on the board, or maybe even before Lou was on the board, but that was before New York City was made into a 5-borough city. It really should not be. It'll cause all sorts of problems in the future.
Thank you, Marty. I see Reshma has rejoined. So let's just have her present the resolutions to everyone, and we can have questions regarding that. Reshma, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, and my apologies. I am in. I had something else tonight, so I had a conflict. We had our meeting this past Monday, and we have 3 resolutions. NYU Langone had approached us in support of 2 projects they're working on. One of them is a veteran family facility that's helping military families. It's called the Military Family Center. And the other project that we have 2 separate resolutions is a really interesting project called the Video Interaction Project, which is really working to help kids who are in the pre-K age group start at a level playing field with other kids. And with their pediatric appointments, they have interactive videos, which will help professionals determine what skills these kids need in terms of literacy and other things in their early childhood development. And then the last resolution, which we spoke about at the last full board meeting, is about something called what's wrong church ballots. There's been this issue in New York State where if you vote in the right county, but in the wrong election district, your ballot will get disqualified, even if you filled out an affidavit ballot. And so there's legislation in the state Senate and the state Assembly to remedy this. And we have written a resolution in support of both of these bills. I'll take any questions.
We do have a couple of hands up. Marty, do you want to reiterate what you had said earlier so the chair can hear?
Yeah. While I'm for both of these projects, they're wonderful, I'm totally against having resolutions recommending funding on outside of the budget priorities. We are very much for putting in things like that in the budget priorities, and it would probably pass, that would certainly pass. But if we would start having funding resolutions in our meetings, I'm sure every committee will find wonderful things that we should fund, and it would cause disorder for future meetings. And this has been the history of CB6 for longer than my 30 years on the board, and as I said before, probably Lou's as well, but which dates back to 1898 when the city came together.
Thank you, Jean. That's a really good point. I, being much newer to the board, had not thought of that when these 2 resolutions were presented and discussed in our board meeting. I mean, this was something that, we were approached by, they approached the board office, and it was something that we only heard about on Friday and had a pretty quick turnaround process on this as well.
On information?
In retrospect, perhaps, maybe.
On information?
Jim, what did you say?
Just on information, these are requests for congressional funding. Our budget process only affects city funding. So I don't think either of these are out of line with respect to our normal inclusion of these in normal budget requests, budget priorities.
And I'll also thank you for that distinction, Jim. That's actually what I was going to add, but also that this is in support of an application, not that it is requesting funds on behalf. So I do want to make that distinction clear. Lou, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Marty is quite correct insofar as budget matters dealing with the New York City budget allocations and appropriations. Jim Collins is exactly correct, because this is third-party funding, and we have no regulatory inhibition on asking for third-party funding. This is an exception to our normal budget process and procedure.
Or printing money for that matter. We've been doing that for quite some time.
The other thing is.
Federal level.
All right, thank you, Lou and John.
Marty Barrett is not correct.
Yes.
I was not there when the Dutch signed the lease for Lower Manhattan. That's a canard.
John, go ahead.
Or maybe a compliment.
John?
Okay. That's all well and good, but just last month we passed a resolution urging the governor to fund at a different level 853 schools for kids with special needs. And just last year we passed a resolution, both unanimously, urging the city of New York not to penalize schools for lost enrollment in terms of their funding due to COVID. So I'm agnostic on the subject, but these are things we have done as recently as last month.
All right, thank you. Jesus?
It should also be mentioned in line with what John was saying, that in 2019, the Housing Committee put forth a resolution asking for the city to fund a homeless outreach team in our district, and it passed this board, and one can access that resolution on the resolution tracker. So if that is a practice or a policy of this board, perhaps it should be made more obvious somewhere.
Thank you. Adam?
Call to question.
Second.
Seconded by Lou. All right. Please go back to your ballot and mark your vote for 9A, B, and C.
Never taught about the hierarchy of the city or how it works, who knows what. I just know that I don't know stuff.
Okay. And once you have marked your votes, you can hit submit. And while people are doing that, Reshma, do you have a report back? Or are you waiving your report?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. No, I'm waiving my report. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for their comments and the, kind of the history of what we have and haven't done in the past. It's useful to know.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. And seeing no further questions, we'll now move on to old or new business. Board members, if you have any old or new business to state, please raise your hand through Zoom. Okay.
I see Marty has his hand raised.
Yes, while I don't have the wording that Michelle had brought up in her statement, I would like to bring that up as a motion of the board.
Which part?
In regards to the co-naming of the northwest corner of 29th Street and First Avenue.
So you would like
for the doctor. I don't have the wording that she did in her presentation, but she certainly convinced me.
So you would like to do the street co-naming now and
yes,
not committee?
Yeah.
And that's a vote to approve?
Okay, so there's a motion to adopt the street co-naming right now. Okay. Eric, I see your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I'm just sharing.
I'm confused.
It's a little, confusing. Especially, haven't had an opportunity to research or understand this proposal in relation to the many people that streets can be named after. It would just seem abrupt to do this tonight.
Is it suggested that this be a reconsideration of the vote to refer? That's what I'm confused about.
No, this is in regards to a statement by Michelle when in regards to co-naming the street for Dr. Ray and I don't have the wording.
You don't have his name.
Dr. Chin.
Yeah.
It's Dr.
Dr. Chin, yes.
It's Dr. May
Hold up.
Edward Chin.
Hold up.
Yes,
Can
thank you,
everyone-
Claude.
everyone on mute, please. Let's respect the rules that I've stated earlier. If you have something to say, please raise your hand. This is a little confusing since a process to do street code namings through the committee was referred back to committee earlier. Eric, are you done saying what you wanted to say? Your hand is still up.
Yes, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
I'll pull back the suggestion. Let it go through the committee.
Okay, so that is being withdrawn. So if there are any other hands up regarding that issue, it has been withdrawn from old or new business. All right, is there any other old or new business? Steven?
If the code naming is going back to committee, how do we vote for 1B?
Thank
Just
you.
put not entitled. That's
Yeah,
what I
you can actually just answer it whatever because it will be scrapped later.
Yeah, the board office will not count the whatever you put down for 1B. It will just be ignored.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lou?
If there's no urgent time consideration, I move that the co-naming be referred back to committee and brought back to the next meeting of the board with I hope will be unanimous approval. But as a matter of procedure, we ought to clarify the language, make sure we all agree on it, and that we are all consistent with what is being proposed. It may delay us for a month, but it means that the committee, that the motion will be accurate and uniformly understood by the entire board.
Yes. Thank you, Lou. Yes, and since it was referred back to committee, that committee will complete that process for the modernization of the street code naming process, at which point that can then be considered. Brian?
Yeah, I just want to note that we actually put out a call for a task force across the whole board to discuss the issues in regards to forming the resolution that was presented tonight. And so what I'm basically getting the feeling is that we actually collected and brought consensus on this, and then without much of a debate, voted to refer it back to committee without me understanding what sections of the resolution would have improved it. That's one of the reasons why I suggested in the middle of the meeting to propose text amendments so that if there was anything disagreeable about it, we could refine it. So we will have to convene some other method of collecting this feedback. I just want to make sure that the communication issues here are addressed before we disband for the night. Because when we ask for this, when I'm in the middle of moving, I'm not playing around. I want that feedback when somebody's calling a task force. I was not even the person who volunteered to lead it. I was volunteered by somebody else. And after, claiming I didn't really have time to do it, I was, cajoled into doing it. I'm not saying this for my own regard because I don't care and I'll leave it on the floor tonight, but don't do this to other people on the board, please. If anybody is asking for information about feedback on a resolution, please give it to them before you vote to basically blow it up in the middle of a meeting after they've been asking about it for 2 months. So a lot of people on this board that are giving their time, that is their own unpaid volunteer time to help the city of New York and the Community District 6 have, move forward in the world. I think we've missed an opportunity here to clear this off of our agenda. And I'm unclear how to proceed if nobody's willing to communicate with me what they want to see in this resolution. I believe somebody else will probably coordinate it going forward, but it's critical that you provide that feedback because otherwise there's just no point in anybody doing anything like this.
All right, thank you, Brian. And since it is referred back to committee, for anyone who had objections to it or were unclear or had issues with it, as Brian mentioned, please do provide that feedback either by email or attend the meetings, please, so that when it is presented, we're not having a committee discussion at full board, but we can actually discuss the merits of the resolution at hand, which is what we were supposed to be doing. Jim, go ahead. You're on mute, Jim, if you're talking.
I actually raised my hand with respect to item number 3, with respect to the fact that we are that we house the United Nations, and the language of bullet point 3 speaks to community or national leaders, and it should probably also include international leaders. And
Jim, what are you?
Mr. Chair, I'm referring to the resolution about street co-namings, and if the,
Okay,
you know,
well,
if Brendan, if you're,
I don't want to get into
just,
it.
I understand.
Yes.
Just one second, Mr. Chair.
Jim,
I'm happy to
Jim,
coordinate this if
Jim,
he's not able to.
I'm going to mute you. Please.
I'm happy to do it.
If you have any questions or comments about the resolution, this is not the time to discuss committee business. As Brian mentioned, please reach out to him or to the committee. All right, there was an opportunity to discuss bullet point by bullet point. As a community board, we decided to refer it back to committee, so that's where it will be discussed. Okay. All right. Are there any other old or new business? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the second roll call.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. We'll go backwards. Claude Winfield.
Present.
Ronnie White. Maura Wong.
Present.
Ryan Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Mark Thompson. Andrew Suresh, sorry.
Good. Present.
Susan Steinberg. Letty Simon. Letty.
I'm here. I have my votes. Do you want them now or when you finish roll call?
When we finish roll call.
Okay.
I think.
No, Letty, submit them now. Are you not doing?
And let him answer. Let him handle it. Thank you.
You know, I need some parliamentary.
Thank you.
Okay, Letty, if you're doing a vocal recording of your vote, you should do it now.
Okay.
And see what your votes are.
Yeah, because I don't want to get to the roll call and then it won't count because I called the roll already. So, all right, go ahead.
Do you want it now?
Yes, now.
Okay. 1A is yes. 1B is abstain. And all of the others are yes. 6A to G are yes. 7A and B are yes. And 9A, B, C are yes. Thank you. And I appreciate the instructions from everybody. And sorry if I yelled.
Thank you, Letty, and thank you, Anne, because I think that was the
No
right way.
worries.
Okay, thank you. Jim, I love you. Bye.
Okay, Sandro, Sherrod.
Still here.
Okay, Sean Sherman. Sean.
Here.
Okay, thanks. Seema Shah.
Present.
Lou Sapersky.
Yo. Oh, and would the secretary confirm that my ballot was properly cast, because I have a little trouble with.
Let's see if I can figure that out. I think what I'll ask the board to take care of that, because there are numbers here and I'm not sure who correlates with them.
It's time for Lou to get a new computer.
It was properly cast.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. All right. Anne is here, right?
Yep.
Lauren Scher.
Present.
Great. Jean Santoro. Matt Roberts.
Still here.
Thank you. Reshma Patel.
Here.
Stephen O.
Present.
Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Rajesh Nayar,
Present.
Phil Napolitano. Philip. Okay, Richard Mintz,
Present.
Sandra McKee,
Present.
Kavitha Matthew, Anton Malner,
Present.
Sandra Leftoff,
Here.
Abigail Cruzmark,
Here.
John Keller.
Yes, abstain, present, here.
Thank you, John. Paige Judge. Paige.
Present. Present.
Got it, Paige. Thank you. Okay, Molly Hollister, excused. Adam Harkey.
Present.
Eric Goldberg. Eric.
Present.
Okay, got it. Charles Fernandez.
Present.
Jean D'Onofrio. Beatrice Disman. Dan Devine.
Present.
Michael Devereaux.
Present.
Stuart Desser.
Present.
Jim Collins. Jim?
He was muted before.
I'm here.
All right, got it. Thanks. Claire Brennan.
I'm here too.
Thank you, Claire. I'm here. Elvie Barroso. Marty Barrett.
Here.
Neil Barkley.
Present.
Asia Badi. And Kyle Athide.
Present.
Okay, great. So is now the time to read some results.
Yep, let's go through the resolutions.
Can Jesus just confirm that we have no other outstanding ballots that we need to take orally?
Sorry, I was muted. Let me just take a quick look. I don't see any missing ballots. We are good. We have them all.
Okay, great. So, transportation 1A. We have 33 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention, 1 not entitled. No abstentions. 1B was the one that we sent back to committee, so there won't be a vote read with respect to that. So we've got Business and Licensing Committee 6A, 34 in favor, 35 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention. No non-entitleds. 6B, 36 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no non-entitles.
Matt, if you're adding in letters, we already did that. We adjusted for that in the air table.
Oh, okay, then I need to read these over again. So Transportation 1A, 32 in favor, 2 opposed, no abstentions, 1 not entitled. 1B was sent back to committee. Business and Licensing 6A, 34 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention, no not entitled. 6B, 35 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. 6C, 35 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. 6D, 35 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. 6E, 35 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. 6C, 35 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions, and no not entitled. Did I read 6F? Well, just in case, 6F, 35 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. 6G, 35 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. Land use 7A. Got 32 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention, and 1 not entitled. 7B, We've got 34 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, 1 not entitled. Budget 9A, 33 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions, and 1 not entitled. 9B, 32 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention, 1 not entitled. 9C, 30 in favor, 2 opposed, 2 abstentions, and 1 not entitled. And that's it. That concludes our vote reading.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. All right, so if there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting.
One moment, Mr. Chair.
So
The correct name of the abstentions that we have heard this evening is not is for cause, abstention for cause, and that's the Robert's Rules of Order entitlement of that position.
Okay. Thank you, Lou. All right, so seeing no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 9:37 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Happy Passover. Happy